of $1,000 gives me what, one step. So when we take back to the community today, Jesus had talking about this, that's all I'm just saying. We're thousands of years later, we're still talking about it. So thousands of years we'll have community preparedness and emergency management. So thank you for coming. We just want to take a second to just get you in the mood for a discussion, because our panelists are going to share some information and then we're going to talk about it. And we really, really will appreciate any question you have. And no question, I mean, we'll appreciate everything. Even if you raise your hand and say, where's the bathroom? Which happens to be this way. I want everyone to know we have to go to the bathroom. It is that way. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our first guest.
Dr. Selma. We are Dr. Selma Bartholomew. Now, everybody got a program, so we're not going to read everybody's bio because these people are so accomplished. She's done everything to read the bio. But I asked each one of you to read the bio as they come to the stage. And yes, so if you want to come up here,
Yes. And who's doing the timing? Okay, that would be a 5 minutes. Okay. And I'll use that one. Ding, ding, ding. Okay.
Thank you so much. How can I sound? Thumbs up? Yes. Oh, wow. You look so beautiful for me. Every time I have days like this, when I get a chance to connect with community, I've always wanted for my grandmother who would say joy shows up in the struggle. And so as I look at you, I just have a sense of joy and thank all the panelists and the circle and families related for having this conversation. So let me get right to it. Resilience in the community. And so what I would like to talk about today is certainly the context of education and preparedness. But I want to look to the future and I want to talk about artificial intelligence. And the fact that we are in the shadow of artificial intelligence, and so many of us feel uncomfortable talking about the technology, the fact that we do not have access to broadband. What will we do as a community, and how can we reframe our mindset around artificial intelligence? Why is it that we should see this as actually a gate opening for us as Black and brown communities? Most people don't, as we talk about AI, it's all about language. Actually, it's all about language. And I haven't been to Africa. What we may have missed if we have a chance to go to the motherland, as we think about who we are historically as a people, you are natural linguists. So we speak 5, 6 languages, go Ghana, the children speak French, and Ghana speak Twi. And they speak it naturally without any formal education, So language actually develops the entire brain. Whereas in this country, education is really just focused on getting most skill and most ever thinking. And so we have a chance now to really own our strengths and say, we are natural linguists, and this is our opportunity to let our children know and our community know, and now how we go about it in the space of AI. How do we use AI in a different way, in a workforce way as well. So the disaster industry has an economy of over $110 billion when things happen. There are jobs that people are able to now respond to in terms of dealing with the disaster. Our communities have no access to those jobs, and they're not thinking about it. We're just thinking low skill. But how can we now use AI to connect, to communicate, and to also reshape our educational landscape? So I'm excited for this conversation. I'll say thank you to the panelists. So the 3 questions is first of all, defining resilience, and defining it in the context of education. How might we use AI to inform our strategy and shape what we do forward. And what lessons do we take from our own lives? What lessons do we take from our own lives as we think about this resilience? So I thank you. I'm excited for the talk. And let's go. Let's go with it.
Well, thank you very much. AI, it seems scary, but it's just like talking to a 2-year-old. Just tell them what you want them to do. And I think that's so important that that's a part of emergency management and community preparedness, because other communities are prepared and now we're coming into that hole. So,
Okay, so we're gonna have an unscheduled, breaking to the program. Because as you know, emergencies don't wait for us, they show up when we want to. Right now, there's an emergency in our community, we've heard of the outbreak of Legionnaires' disease. Right, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit, as you said, we think it would be useful information. So we know that 12 cooling towers have been tested positive on 10 buildings. We know that 6 people have already died, 111 people have been identified as having it, and 7 other people are in the hospital right now. So I wanted to make sure that we addressed it, because there's a lot of news in it, but not a lot of useful information. So I went to AI and I did a little research on it. And so Legionnaire's disease is caused by the Legionella bacteria. So it festers in water systems, which is why we keep talking about cooling towers. And so, but the thing that they're not talking about, we know that City College Science Building is one of the centers, one of the buildings that had it. We also know that Harlem Hospital Tower had it. And we know there's a lot of Harlem between City College and Harlem Hospital. So we have to understand that it's in the community. So what do we need to do to keep ourselves safe? First of all, engineers, we rose in warm temperature between 77 and 113 degrees. So anything water related in your house, you might want to clean your shower heads. And I also, I not only consulted the AI, I also consulted AD. AD is daytime Edwards. It's our disaster preparedness community. And I talked to him last night, and one of the things he expounded upon is that he thinks that the people who had the most impact may have been exposed to aerosolization of those droplets that have Legionnaires' disease. Now, where can that happen? It can happen in a hot shower. So, if you've got Legionnaires' disease in your shower head, and then you turn on a hot shower and it steams up, that steam will probably not be enough to kill it right away, but it'll be enough that you breathe it in. And when it goes directly into your lungs, that's when it's most effective. So these are the things I'm thinking about. Cleaning shower head. I would avoid steam baths. Don't go to steam room with your YMCA right now. Take cold showers if you have to. It's still awful. Get away with it. But and then keep your eyes on the story because we're not getting enough information. So.
oh, our next panelist is Jordan Harlem.
Hi, well, thank you for welcoming me to Harlem, and I'm so excited to be a part of this event, whatever.
Right, Mike.
I don't think there's any.
Mike.
Hello, is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So anyway, but Jora, I'm bringing greetings from South Bronx, and just excited to be a part of this planning because and about this future because I feel like we've been working, all of us collectively in one way, shape, or form on how are we going to create our community a bit more resilient so that we're a part of it. So what I actually want to do is actually read a couple short sections from the book that I wrote, literally called Planning Your Community. You don't have to move out of your neighborhood to live in the past. Because I believe that the bottom line of what it's about is about creating the kind of community development that shows us that we don't have to move out of our neighborhoods to live better ones, that there are things that we can be doing that literally make us stronger as a community economically, specifically, so that we are a lot more resilient economically. Because I have to tell you this, and I think we all know, when people are economically disempowered, we are much easier to push around. And then you layer everything else on it, from a public health perspective, food, then it just becomes, it feels like it's impossible. If you don't know that it's not fair, people would do what I think your mortals would consider impossibilities. But I'm gonna just review a little bit because I felt like this is really great to say along the way. So reclaiming our communities may sound like some utopian vision. Others may hear a threatening war cry. To me, it should be the standard operating procedure to promote peace and happiness in every community. I consider brave and hope action verbs. Reclaiming our communities is my prayer and hope that all people in neighborhoods like the one I grew up in see the divine in ourselves and the places we come from. And that's not always an easy thing to do. White supremacy, the media, public and private policies, and even local traditions and attitudes often lead us to believe that neither we nor our communities are worthy of consideration or respect. Despite all that, this book is an attempt to share a story of why I believe that the reclamation of these types of American communities, the very ones that have been written off as intractable problems that can never be solved, will advance human potential, save money, and soothe our own souls as well. Yeah. You know, I want you to imagine a thief in the night who came into your house, roused you from a deep and dreamless sleep, forced you out in the street, and then slept in your mission. And there you are, standing on the sidewalk, in the not fit to be seen in public t-shirt you went to sleep in, staring at your house and wondering how you got to be considered a trespasser. Now, did this thief come just pop up out of nowhere, or were they a long time coming? Were there signs of their impending arrival? Did you get wind of talk that your neighborhood was quote unquote changing? Maybe you heard about something like this happening in other neighborhoods, but here already, the scenario above is a dramatic metaphor for how a community might experience what is commonly referred to as gentrification, or in other words, how poor people of color displaced by wealthier, whiter people might feel. The imagery came to mind as I reflected on the title of my book, Reclaiming Your Community, as well as a conversation I had here and I heard the following quote. You're not doing any favors by fixing a person and then sending them back into a broken community. Now, statistically, living in an area of concentrated poverty is worse for poor people than living in economically diverse communities. Your chances of a better life diminish if you are geographically concentrated with other impoverished people. So, what is it that we want to do if we're reclaiming our community? And who are we reclaiming it from? Are we trying to reclaim our communities from future development that will not be accessible? Does that mean preserving the less than satisfactory status quo in front of us now? Can we reclaim a community from poverty and long-term economic stagnation, along with the hopelessness that accompanies it? Is it possible to reclaim our communities from that constant yearning for greener pastures because we grew up wanting to leave the places we're from? If you reclaim your community and some amount of genuine prosperity unfolds, where will all the poor people go? Is that your problem too, on top of everything else you want to see in your future? I believe that many of us carry the scars of our collective history. I often wonder if the imagination of aspiration has been run out of some of us by the savage vanquish of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Wilmington and Durham, North Carolina, or the violence against Black and brown lives and systemic denials of finance and education. Has the European and later U.S. conquest of native lands or the stigmatization of non-white Latino and Asian immigrants made us unable to see the value of what has been in front of us all along? We need to, these are some of the questions that I'm really hoping we can dive into as we go into and further into this conversation around how we are building and reclaiming our communities from the inside out, the ways that actually serve us first and foremost. Thank you.
I think that's a conversation that we've been having amongst in our community for years and for folks and everything. Reclaiming the community, I think everyone's forgetting one, because it's talking about gentrification and the things that are going on, that we talk about and we see happening decade, well, not decade, but it happens in phases, or I forget the word, but that's, thank you. And so, you want to introduce the other one?
Dr. Joseph Videos. The history activity.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me participate in this conversation. Very important conversation. Just to say a little bit, I'm a medical doctor here in the Harlem community. I've worked in Harlem for over 3 decades plus. And I'm active in the Committee for Independent Community Action. I think these are a reflection of some of the most important issues that we have to change in order for our communities to have resilience. So it has to do with housing that's truly available, accessible, affordable and accessible to our people, to Black and brown people who for generations have lived in public housing. And right now in this city, there's an effort to privatize public housing, which results in evictions and displacement. So that's one area that we need to address. I'm an activist. I believe in activism. I believe in our ancestry, our history, and our carrying on. And our people have been activists from the time 1619 that we landed on these shores. We have been fighting for community, for decency, for our equality. And we need to continue that fight. Whoever is in office, we need to continue that history and that fight, because we are strong. We have such great, amazing ancestors. I also work with the All-Stars Project, which is a youth development program, and I have been inspired to be an activist by Dr. Lenore Fulani, who was the first woman, first African-American to run for president as an independent. And working directly with her, she's no longer involved in public life because she has dementia, which is a condition that disproportionately affects our people. And we can talk more about health. And then I do these workshops, which I hope to do one here today, creating our mental health, which is something that is very, very dear to me, and I'm very, very committed to. We use poetry, theater, performance, music, movement in the workshop to help people create our mental health, to take responsibility for our mental health in our communities, really the world's mental health, because health, including mental health, is greatly impacted on and greatly shaped by social conditions, by educational opportunity, economic opportunity, housing. There's probably nothing more that impacts more importantly on health than the environment in which you grow up and in which you live. And the issues of poverty, inequality, oppression, violence, abuse, of course, impact on our health. And those are, we have so much more that we could do to address those issues. So I did want to talk about Legionella because this is a crisis, a health crisis right now in Harlem. And I hold the elected officials, the city government, the Department of Health responsible.
Yes.
So just give a little bit of history. In 2015, there was a Legionella crisis and outbreak, one of the biggest ones in the history of this country in the South Bronx, in New York City.
Yes. Yes.
And because 16 people died, over 130 people, 38 people were affected by it. Right now, we're up to 111 people, and 6 people have died. So hopefully what they're saying about having disinfected those cooling towers is true. We don't know if that's really going to stop the epidemic because it can be in other places. It can be in air conditioning. So we'll see. But hopefully we all pray and hope that no other people will die. Such a tragedy. It could have been prevented. It is 100% preventable. There was a law passed by the city council after the 2015 epidemic in this city, that inspections for Legionella had to occur in water systems, in cooling towers, every 90 days. So that was done at the beginning in 2017 and so forth. But over time, those inspections have dropped off. They've stopped doing them. And where did they stop doing them? They stopped doing them in our community. The epidemic, the outbreak is in our community because the negligence, as Reverend Sharpton said this morning at Dan, the negligence, the lack of respect is in our community, Black and brown in Harlem. So they weren't, the 9 of the 10 buildings that were found to have Legionella bacteria in their cooling towers had not been up to date with their inspections. So that's the cause. They're supposed to be doing these regular inspections. And the city was not checking. The city's supposed to inspect and follow up, but it was not doing it. So we need some political power. We need for our voices to be heard. We need to be able to say, this is unacceptable, we do not accept it. And I think we need to participate in the political process. We have someone who ran for mayor, thank her, and congratulate her. We need a lot more, I think, of political reform, and to open up the process. I'm a political activist, I'm an independent, I support opening the process. There's over 1 million independent voters who are not affiliated with either major party. Many of them, the majority of them are young people and people of color, Black, brown, Asian. And they don't like the party. They don't agree with what's happening, the status quo. And I think that they should be allowed to vote. The point I'm trying to make is that those independents, if you register as an independent, you cannot vote in the primary. That is unfair. I went to a hearing at Medgar Evers College on this issue, and I was very proud to be in that college. Medgar Evers died for equal voting rights. I knew in my soul where he would have stood on this issue, including Malcolm X, who I think was a Black independent. So I do a workshop called Creating Our Mental Health, and I have a poem that I would like to end with, which we use in our workshop, where we do an exercise where you say your name, movement, and this is part of our history. Langston Hughes, who lived in Harlem, I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its bloody bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient dusty rivers. Our souls have grown deep like the rivers. Thank you.
All right. Let's see a little bit more comment now.
So, we hope you're taking notes and questions, because after the introductions, they're going to come back one-on-one and discuss those in more detail, and we would love to have your input. Okay?
So, as you can see, we're already in the crisis. This is where we're getting to the meat of it, and that's why we have to have that mindset that we gotta move forward and take action now. One of the things Haja impressed upon us is that we need to make sure that this panel creates impact. And so everyone within the room is responsible for taking something from this and creating some impact. And part of that impact is sharing the information that we heard. So we've heard the history of Legionnaires' disease, and we see how it is now, and we're seeing once again the same process of our neighborhoods being underrepresented in terms of resources that we need. So I want to segue from Dr. Fields and what she's talking about and her focus on our health and our health disparities. And then I want to introduce Ray Figueroa, who's going to talk to us about food and growing our own food in our own community and the direct connection between our food and our health. So Ray, please
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And peace and blessings be upon you all. And it is indeed a privilege and an honor to be with you all. Yeah. Food and health. How do we look at food and health from a community assets approach? Meaning, how do we look at our community strengths already, as opposed to deficits in our community? And how do we use that approach to promote community, to promote community self-reliance in the spirit of solidarity? And that's a big condition. That's a big community. And I suggest to you that promoting self-reliance in the spirit of solidarity requires building up and moving at the speed of trust. And what that means is that we have to spend time with one another intimately at the local block by block level, building up relationships of trust. So what I want to suggest, let me just run through my questions. How can we practice self-reliance in order to build up our community strength as a resilient community? How can food and health build long-term strength for us in our community? And so what I want to do is actually cite just two. There are many, but I just want to cite two powerful examples related to food and health and the community having organized around solidarity, organizing its capacity for self-reliance, organizing as a result of, over the years, building up those relationships of trust. Because we can't move on the big issues unless we have that trust in place. We can do things on a daily basis, one by one, day by day, week by week. But what about the long-term issues that inform what we're in? I'll just put it like this. I'll ask a rhetorical question. How is it that during a disaster, we have some communities that are more vulnerable to those disasters, less resilient? I'll let you fill in the blanks. And that has to do with looking at the issues of resilience in terms of the issues in our community. And so I just want to give you two very, very powerful examples. During the pandemic, all of you were here in the city during the pandemic. Okay, we know what happened in terms of how the constraints, the directives of the lockdown, of keeping people home, disproportionately affected our community. Why? Because we don't work remotely, right? Our work is not via computer. So this affected people's economics when they couldn't go to work, they couldn't earn money, but they couldn't earn money. The issue of hunger insinuated itself. We already in our communities, talk about prices. We already had an issue of food insecurity and rent burden. Bronx and other boroughs having some of the highest rates of eviction in the city already prior to the pandemic. It just accelerated during the pandemic. Well, how we organize is that we community gardens is what I really want to focus on now as an example of using food and health to promote community resilience in a very, very sustainable manner. Community gardens in the South Bronx, I'm going to use that, not the South Bronx, the entire Bronx. Community gardens that were located in the North Bronx came together, right? And mind you, it takes something of an effort. It's a process to organize a community garden. So there was time invested in that. And it was as a result of the spirit of solidarity, the spirit of responsibility for our community and for our destiny that organized community gardens. So community gardens, a group in the North Bronx organized, I want to say about a half a dozen or so. Similarly, in the West Bronx, in the High Bridge area, community gardens came together and organized themselves. Similarly, in the east part of the Bronx, in the Hunts Point area, and yes, of course, in the South Bronx area, groups of community gardens came together. Why? Because when the pandemic first came down, we said we have to do something for our community. We have to figure out a way to leverage our harvest and really magnify our harvest and get that out to the community. And we did that. Thousands of pounds. It's got to be in the hundreds of thousands of pounds over the course of the pandemic. And thousands, folks, I won't say thousands upon thousands, but a good number of people. And in the South Bronx, where I'm very active, we organized with NYCHA, right? And so it was, seniors, parents were, coming to us saying, thank you so much. The food prices, are such that we can't get the food that we need. And so we were in a good position to provide for our own. We were able to implement self-reliance. One particularly powerful example is there's a woman, and I have the witness, New York Botanic Garden, an organizational director who can bear witness to the fact that this woman came up during a meeting that we had, and she said, something, I'm very grateful for the food that you guys gave out. Of course, what were we giving out? Fresh fruits and vegetables, right? That eating it on a regular basis, this woman, right, said, this eating this food that you guys were distributing actually caused my diabetes medication to be lowered. This is what I'm talking about, right? This is what I'm talking about. Yes. Okay. I'm gonna ask the question, but I want to give you the other powerful example, which we as a community, we're asleep on. And that is our youth. All right? Out of the community garden, I see Brother Robert here, Brother Robert and Baba Haja know, and Cindy, Sister Cindy's back know. I do alternatives to incarceration work with pejoratively labeled gang-affiliated youth, right? And I've been doing this through the community garden, right? Engaging them in all of learning about growing food, right? And in addition to that, I would invite leaders of the gang of local street organizations to come in, right? And parlay with my probationers, right? With my parolees. And over the course of, it took about 2 or 3 years, some of you may be familiar with the term the shot caller, right? That's a title within, that's a hierarchical title within the street organization, shot caller. I would invite that shot caller on a regular basis and have him talk and build, right? And I would, at the end, there was some time we said, take this home to grandma, she'll know what to do with it, or, I would, say, here's a couple of bucks, I appreciate what you did, as a tip. Well, that shot caller came to me one day and said, hey, I need to talk with you. Got beef with one of the folks in your community. So long story short, because I know the time is running here, it was very serious. It was the nature of the issue was such that violence was going to go down, and it was going to go down in such a way that somebody was about to be killed because the shot caller, their street organization, their gang, somebody had been killed. And somehow my person was looked at as being affiliated, right? But understand something. Over the course of, I talked about trust, building trust. Over the course of those 3 years, of developing these relationships, right? What happened? He comes to me and says, Ray, I need to talk with you. That normally wouldn't happen. That wouldn't have happened. As you know, just yesterday in the news, four kids, 13, 14, 15 years old, was shot in the Bronx. That's what would have happened. Right? But this didn't happen. This is a harvest of peace and blessing. And I'm saying the community gardens are growing food, we're growing health, and we're growing community. Because we see when we talk about food and health, a community access approach, everybody is important. We were able to mediate a situation where we were able to avoid that violence and avoid having somebody get killed. And, you know, after it all was said and done, the big homie, the one that runs the organization over across a few blocks, said, Ray, you're good. Meaning that it went out, the word went out. So we developed a relationship, and we did this without the police.
And then may I say something? You're definitely good, because the stuff that you're sharing.
Yes.
We're gonna give you more time.
So we need, yes, I'm sorry.
We want you to come, I want you to,
Okay.
no, you just said, no, this is really, I want to hear more because it's fascinating things that have been accomplished. And this is what we need in our community. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna.
I just want to say, what I wanted to say is that we have a crisis already, folks. We don't have to wait for a crisis. And if one kid gets stabbed, that's one kid too many.
Okay.
If one kid gets killed, it's one kid too.
Do you have more to tell us? Can you
Yes.
do that?
Yes, I
You're
do.
coming back.
Thank you.
How many people do you know that can come and give a report? The work that is being done, and those people who are doing the work, know what that's about. This is what we're going to do for that. The incident commander from Harlem Emergency Communications, Ms. Carol Johnson.
Carol.
Thank you.
Johnson from Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Johnson.
I'm grateful for everyone that decided to put this forum together and all of the dynamic speakers. Can we please give them a big This is what the community looks like. We don't have to know each other to create a community. And this is where it starts. Myself being, I don't look at myself as an elder, I'm a seasoned adult. I basically focus through a group that I helped co-found, East Harlem Co-ed, community organizations active in disasters. Because we realize that disasters are more than threefold. It's physical, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's financial, it's nutritional. It comes in so many forms, but where do you start? It begins and it ends with us. See, I can't help you if I can't help myself. And so that's what we teach, self-resilience first. It's like the yo-yo effect. You're on your own. I can plan with all of these beautiful people in a meeting. And we can plan, we can all live on the same floor. And we plan as a floor. But when the event takes place, we're still gonna be. Where's this young lady gonna be? We don't know. So guess what? We're on our own. And that's what we try to enforce on people. Make a plan. If you don't plan to be resilient in this time, then you're planning to fail. So the thing is, in order for me to teach you something, I have to get something to give. I've been boots on the ground. I don't know the guy that's waving fair plans and everything, talking about boots on the ground. But we've been boots on the ground for many, many years, for decades now. And I always represent the Harlem Emergency Movement. I am one of the leadership teams, team members. And we teach people how to keep it real simple. Who has a thermometer in their house? Thermometer? Who has the first aid kit? Who knows how to use it? Who knows how to stop somebody's extensive bleeding and blood is pooling on the ground? Who knows how to stop it? If someone is shot or stabbed, who knows how to do that in order to try to staunch the bleed, in order to hold them and keep them alive until, I know the doctors know, until EMS arrives. You know, so we're teaching people those things. We're teaching children. We have one of our youngest students, I think, was 7 when we taught it. Instead of going around 2 children, one was 7, one was 9. And they learn so quickly. Escort them back again and make sure that they can train. It may start with community, but when we, all the information you're going to hear today, it needs to be shared with someone. We need commitments from everybody in this room. That the next time you hear about something, you will bring someone with you. Don't come alone. Don't come and then show it to somebody else. Come with me. Even if you gotta treat them to lunch, because you know we like to eat.
Yes.
And people don't wanna go and not get something free. But even if you have to treat them to lunch or coffee or something, bring someone with you. Times are dire now. And I don't think we know how dire they are. Not only the nuts in our administration, but you have to think that the protection has been taken off of our environments. It's been taken off of our water, our air. And so we are living almost like we're living, breathing corpses. You know, and so I'm not going to tell anybody about voting or who to vote for, but I want you to recognize we don't even realize that this was summer that we're in now. How much rain did we get? Wasn't this supposed to be 90 one day and it was 60? It was supposed to be 100 and it was 80. And then you had days that was 60 and it felt like it was 100. So we don't know what's going to happen. That's where preparedness comes in. And what we do is we teach you the simple process of preparing yourself. The same thing that you do every day. It's that simple. And also know how to shelter in place. We lost a lot of people during the pandemic because they couldn't shelter in place. They kept running in and out. My building, we lost 200 people out of 862 people because those people refused to shelter in place. We have to learn how to listen to people that may not be as seasoned as we are. Because I had 80-year-old people that was telling me, well, you're in a wheelchair. I don't need you to go to the store for me, but I'm going to the store. Let me just go to the store for you. Her face was on the flyer in the hallway 2 weeks later. So we have to listen, like Ray was saying. You have a lot of young people out here with a lot of information. This young man here filming. We have a lot of people that's working with us. And we want you to be safe. And it's simply a matter of having food in your home ahead of time so you don't have to run in and out. Non-perishable foods, keeping extra water, making sure everybody has insurance. If you have insurance, call your insurance company. Ask if you can get your medication 2 months, 3 months in advance, as opposed to going to the pharmacy every week. We talk about putting essential items in the bag. Your identification, copies on your identification, your insurance cards, the little printout that comes with your medication, put that in.
So you can definitely get a chance to give us an order. No, we don't want bits and pieces of information.
No, we don't want bits and pieces.
So we're gonna call you back up too, but if you have a question that you wanna throw out there for me to think about, and then we're gonna start with the panel discussion after us speak.
If you're not ready, what do you plan to do to get ready? Thank you.
Carol, I don't see you.
What they say, no, you don't even want to plane. They say, what? If you have an infant with you, you put your oxygen mask on what?
First.
Right? Take care of yourself.
Carol Johnson was at the first Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day back in 2013. Wally told me this is probably the most prepared person in the city. Don't let the scooter fool you. Nothing's changed since then except she's more prepared. She is a key part of so many organizations. And during the pandemic, we all worked as one. So there was wasn't just the COAB or Harlem Emergency Network, South Bronx Network. We got more PPE distributed in our neighborhoods than the city ever did. And we might have to do it again.
And can I say, I have to say this because I witnessed it firsthand. I've been to Georgia, I was in Georgia when, COVID was going on, and Mark, introduced, invited me to a couple of your meetings. You guys that are so efficient, the work you do, so I really want to plug into the community
Point out who's hiding in the audience, we have your, co-founder of Harlem Emergency Network, co-founder. Look at the rest team,
Look at the
third member, he got an award from Nyson, you know, that's, he's our uptown godfather. Our brother from Brooklyn who is coming to join us. Barbara, we can certainly you got there. She's got information for us. There's a lot of people who have been doing this work, and that's why we have here to share the information. So next up, who's going to talk to you about communication. He's going to tell you about this year's Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day. Stu Reed.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Bob. Thank you to Circle Brothers and all the sponsors of organizations. Happy to be here. My name is Stu Reed. I'm the director of the WHCR Emergency Broadcast Team. I'd like to just tell you just quickly a little bit about my background. Communications is so important, is vital, and undergirds so much that we do. But going back probably about 50 years now, 1975, I started a cable TV show back when folks didn't know what cable was. Cable only had 50% penetration. But I started a show called Black Time, which was the cultural arts, music, poetry, dance about our culture. I thought it was important to get our message out there, to get our visuals out there, to get our narrative out there. And back then, I was only on Manhattan cable initially down in southern Manhattan. Finally got uptown to northern Manhattan. And still was very limited. You know, you had gatekeepers and controls over the content. Fast forward, here we are in 2025, some 50 years later, and we have a global information network, the internet, that is able to connect folks across the planet. And there are very few to no gatekeepers. It's a wide open network. So what I'm about, and the folks that I work with in my team, is about putting the control in the hands of our community, of our people. We need to transform ourselves from mere consumers of technology and communications and media to producers of media and content. We need to be able to use the tools that are out there to connect our communities, to tell our story, to tell our narrative. So, you know, we do a lot of things at WHCR. Bob mentioned in 2012, following the devastation of Hurricane Sandy, we got together and Wally was one of the key factors. So was Hodges, so was Bob, so many others here. We created the WHR Emergency Broadcast Team, which trains folks in the community in emergency communications using alternative forms of communication, which is one of the things I want to talk about when we break out. Using mobile radios and other walkie-talkies and other devices that we control so that we can talk to each other without any third party. There was very little information back in Hurricane Sandy about what was going on in Harlem. So we needed a way to collect that information. Fortunately, we're also associated with the radio station, so we have a way to put the information back out. Once we collect the information, we have a way to connect it and push it back out to the community. So my question and challenge to our audience and others, how do we create communication networks for our families, for our buildings, for our housing development, for our communities that we control and keep it safe? We have the tools, we have the networks, and we have the applications that are out there and available to us. So let's take advantage of it and make it happen. Thank you.
Well, I would like if you give our panel a hand. So, and they're like working, they're focused and they're concerned for the community, concerned for us as well as themselves. It's not just about them. They could have done it for their family and not thought about it. When they created organizations, it said 75 years. Oh, 50 years. Oh, okay, because I said you don't go to that if I do this. So I think it's great. And also, please give yourselves a hand for clearing it. And we want to hear from you. If you have any questions, we have Ali and Maroon here with mics. They're going to answer your question or actually come to you with the mic if you raise your hand. There's a question over here.
We want to hear from everybody. Like I said, we need everybody involved in this effort.
Yeah, you got a lot of information. Please show me. Let us know what you think about it.
It's not on.
Okay, well, I'm not feeling it. Yes.
I'm only going to go first because I have to be there. But I'd like the fact that Dr. Fields eventually remembered that in 2015 in the Bronx, it was the highest case of losing disease. I lived in the Bronx at that time, and I was very concerned about it. And there was an open forum that day, and I went to that open forum, and I said to them, I said, why don't those schools have public? Okay. Nobody said a word. What did they do this time to prevent the Bronx from getting religion? What did they do? Because they had to do something. Okay. And I looked at this problem and I thought about a situation that happened to me. I had an AC, an air conditioner. And I had a lot of pigeons in my area. And they dropped, pigeon dropped in my air conditioner, destroyed it. Destroyed it. We know pigeons can drop shit on a car and burn the color of the car. That's how powerful it is. So I said to them, I said, is it possible that the correlation could be that there are pigeon droppings on those water towers? I understand anything. Okay, Dr. Cruz?
So, yeah, thank you. Is this on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, for the question. So what happened was there was local law 7, anyway, it's a local New York City law that was passed. And so you have to inspect for Legionella bacteria. The bacteria can grow in water systems and warm, when the water gets warm. It's not really related to the pigeons. You're supposed to inspect whatever happens. I mean, even if the pigeons are dropping, you need to be able to inspect and see if it's contaminated. And if it's contaminated, you can de-infect it. That was what they said they did. They found that there were these 12 cooling towers that were infected, that actually had Legionella bacteria in them. They had not been doing the inspections. Every 90 days, there's supposed to be inspections. They did not do them. So they probably haven't done them. I don't know about other cooling towers. I think these are some of the things we need to demand answers to. So now the Department of Health in New York City, and they're going to need support and help because there's a lot of testing. They should be able to identify from each patient who passed away, from everybody, if you do a sputum culture, you grow out the bacteria, you can tell where what cooling tower that person was exposed to. We should have that information. We know it was supposed to be one cooling tower in the Bronx that was responsible for the outbreak. So if you read the literature about it, they found out what exactly happened. So we should get that information, but that we have to inspect the water system. Complex, large water systems can be contaminated with bacteria, particularly Legionella.
So can't they cover these water towers?
They could still be contaminated even if they cover them up. It's not just a matter of. All over the place.
So there's not enough information being disseminated in the community about it, because I've been to urgent care, and I walked in, I said, oh, we must have a lot of people coming in here to be tested for engineers. The girl says, well, what? She didn't even know what it was. Okay, where are they telling people they can go and be tested?
They're not telling, they're just saying, see a doctor, as if everybody has a doctor, but they can just go see. That's not, that's one of the things we need to change in terms of resiliency. Many people in our communities don't have access. You have to have insurance, you have to, you know, you can have Medicaid, but it may take weeks and weeks to get an appointment. These are structures, I think of as structural racism. These are the things that we have to address, that have to be changed. And we can help each other. You know, we don't have to wait for the government. We can talk, like this kind of reform. We can bring medical people to the community to talk about these issues.
Yeah, so, and then one was me. I think everybody can hear, right? Can you hear me?
Yes. Hear me there.
So one is the science that you're saying in terms of the water, right? There's bacteria everywhere. And I think the bigger question we're all saying is there community? This idea that we're not necessarily coming together and addressing questions like engineers, like the crisis around the killing of our youth, all those issues. You don't have community now. You don't necessarily have Black leaders anymore. You don't have those individuals, right? We lost so many collections over. So community matters. So I think we have to begin to say, how do we rebuild community loving Harlem and really well what craft did to our community that we just took so much from and so we need to go about doing the community.
I'd like to say one thing. Sure. We do have leadership right here in this room.
Yes.
Because we didn't wake up, you know, we weren't born in indictments and all of a sudden became community activists and doctors and, you know, all the wonderful things on this panel. So the leaders are here. You took the time to come out to find out what's happening. Take this back to your community. Take it to your community board. Take it to your church. Take it to your WIS partner. You know, whatever. We have so many community groups in our neighborhood. Take it to the people you know, the willing workers in the church, the pastor. You know, those are the people that you take it to and bring them the idea. And I know speak for Harlem, you guys see that work in the East Harlem co-ed. We will train the trainers. We can show you and train you how it's very simple. But the community starts right here.
Yeah, yes, okay. Yes, community, definitely, we do have it, we've got leaders, that is clear. But, I do think that community is a place, right? It's also an activity, it's how we do it, but you do need those places in which to conduct community. And I'm gonna give you unfortunately, a very sad story about resiliency in communities in the last era or when it happened. The Chicago heat wave, the one back in the 90s, it killed an enormous amount of people, most of them in poor communities of color around Chicago. But there was one really amazing incident that doesn't get a lot of play. There were two communities almost exactly alike in terms of demographics, both poor of color. Didn't have a whole lot going on there, just straight up poor communities of color. They were both ghettos. One of the communities had an incredible amount of mortality rates, it was huge. The other one, again, same type of community, of color and poor, actually lost next to no one. When folks started looking to see what actually made it so that a bunch of people, most people lived in one community versus the other one that looked just like it, it was literally how the community was planned. There were places where people developed informal relationships and networks It was the farmers markets, it was the churches, it was these little cafes, these little flea markets where people saw each other on a daily basis. And so when people didn't show up, you know, when abuela or grandma or auntie didn't show up at a usual space where she was, people would be like, oh, we need to go check on her or on him or whoever it was. But with the community that did not have those kind of spaces, those places are called third spaces. They're either places that are neither work nor home. They can often be commercial spaces where people do business and connect with each other. And unfortunately, in many of our communities, we don't have those spaces. So we think we have the leaders, but there are leaders, they just don't know that they're there. And that each other are there, and there are also people to be supportive of them. That's why so many people die in Chicago in those communities. And so when I think about the work, and like literally the work of reclaiming our communities, it is making sure that we can create those spaces so that community is an easier activity to happen. And it's about homeownership, it's about building economic base, because most of the time that is one of the things that doesn't keep us from being like just pushed literally out of our home and out of the places of business that should be called ours. If we're not building them, if we're not maintaining them, if we're not supporting them, then yeah, it is easy for us to be pushed around. And I think some of it definitely has to do with how we create those spaces that are ours and stay ours so that we can take care of our home.
And this is just the beginning, because yes, they can talk about when people need, prepare presentation in 24 hours podcast.
Yes, I will. But I just want to comment, one of the things that we have been able to do, and I must give credit to Wally Abdul-Noor, who initially got us going with creating community radio networks in various housing developments, public housing developments, and other areas. So we have a number of networks, one called the New York North Emergency Network, or NINE, where every week we have a weekly radio check, where there might be 20 or 30 folks on the network that are checking in with each other, basically a wellness check. We also have something called the Manhattan North Network, which was started at Johnson Houses and Grand Houses and Dyckman Houses. And they have a weekly radio check on Tuesday mornings, every week. And what the residents there, Ms. Ethel Velez, who has since passed away, dynamic leader in public housing out of Johnson Houses, started about 4 years ago, was a daily building check, where all the folks on the network in a building give a report in the morning and in the evening on the elevator, heat and hot water. And it's tabulated and kept track of by the leadership within the development. And of course, any other thing that's going on, like, you know, we did start this during the pandemic. So folks will report and check on each other. So it's a community network. When you talk about the third places, the radio network is a virtual third place for family and community to come together. So it's really important, but we recently just started one in Brooklyn, where folks at a housing development in Brooklyn, we train them on how to use emergency radios. There's certain radio protocols that you talk on the radio so that if emergency responders, first responders, and others are on the network, they understand you. There's a language, there's a protocol. And so we're building family and network safety nets at that particular housing development. So these tools are available. They're cheap. The networks, a lot of them are free. There's a network that works on your smartphone that's free. It works not just in your neighborhood, but the cell phone walkie-talkie is a global network. It's a free network. But we have to start to use it to connect with each other. And
this is just the beginning.
That's the beginning. I've been asked to talk about the Harlem Emergency Preparedness Day. This is our 13th year. We started in 2013. Bob David Carol Bay, one of our first speakers in 2013. We had our inaugural event, I believe it was the Harlem State Office Building. Well, now we are having the 13th event at City College on Thursday, September 25th, from noon to 5 p.m. A free event. We're going to have folks from SPLY doing CPR. Red Cross is going to be there. CERT's going to be there. Mount Sinai is going to be doing stuff with me. We're going to have all kinds of experts on emergency preparedness mitigate and respond to making presentations. We hope that you will tell your friends and neighbors to come. We will be live streaming it as well. And you can register online, go on the whcr.org or whcrebt.org and register. And there will be a free lunch provided. So, please come on out. There's some flyers in the back of the room, that you can share and pass around. And if you need any more information, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Because we're gonna.
September 25th, it's a Thursday, the last Thursday in September. We'll do it at 5 p.m. at City Council.
Right,
The WHCR radio.
right, and we'll announce that again. We will announce that again. We're gonna change the format right now, no other, everyone has other questions. But what we're going to do, since we have the stations here, they have the questions that are being, canvassed for addressed. We want everyone to go as a group to each station one by one, spend about 7 minutes there, a little time, it's time to move on to the next one. And this way, all questions, everyone can be a part of the discussion. You say no, then we don't have. Okay, so we're asking. You can ask this question, but I just wanted to let that. We'll get you a question. We'll ask you a question here, but just in the interest of time, it would be helpful if everyone would just do that. So the question after that, if we can move over to the subsection, that would be appreciated.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
One, can someone define the word community? And secondly, can somebody define the difference between a community and a neighborhood? So working the school system, and when you have young adults and youth, you have to distinguish between the two.
Well, one thing is, I think of, and we can all respond, I think of community as a grouping of people who do something, some activity together and share it. It could be the community of people who meet and talk about poetry. It could be, you know what I mean? It's not just defined locally by geography. I work in a development community called the development community, people who are committed to helping us, everybody around the world. It's international. And we have a diaspora, Black diaspora, which is international. And you can think of that as the worldwide Black community, which is connected and is developing connections. There's the music community. So I think of community broadly. We use the term a lot. I think it's a very, very positive word. We are building community right here, right now. So when I do the Creating Our Mental Health workshops, what it's about is building community, building connection, support for each other, being able to talk about things with each other that you haven't talked. This is what we do in Creating Our Mental Health. We use poetry and movement and music, exercise of like 4 minutes, where two people who don't know each other are moving together with music in the background. You do that with 10 people in the room, and then you read a poem and open up a conversation. You have community. So I think it's, I don't want to fix it. I want to keep it open, developing, growing, emerging.
Okay, so we're going to do this because we have community as one of the items that need to be addressed. And when we get to that section, in the interest of time, we have a lovely after this one. I just want to make sure that we're mindful. So if everyone could just go, if you want to start actually, see that would be fine. If you want to start here, I think it would be best. And then, sure.
Oh, can you hear me okay? Yes. So
Yes.
part of what I do in the education space and what's special about what I'm running is this model is like playing tennis. You toss a ball, somebody tosses it back to you. And so we built a new instructional model that changes the how people talk in relationships. So if we just agree, we have six posters, right? So if we just distribute ourselves around the 6 posters and each leader go over their poster, and based on the time, just give us a time for you to say, like 7 minutes in a poster, and then we rotate it to the next one. And so I it's at 7 minutes, 7 minutes. We did not get to all 6. You don't have to get to all 6. And then when you call time, we just go over to the one, and we can then share, go to the next one and share, and the next one. So at least we would have at least distributed ourselves and at least be able to have a application. We don't have to do all six right now. I'm not concerned about the I have to leave the station.
Right,
I don't want to-
right. And just in the interest of time, I think that's,
So I don't use the station. Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.